is one of the all-time greats himself, Mr. October, Reggie Jackson, here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Reggie?
Rich, I'm great, and thanks for calling. It's always good to talk to you. I don't want to ask you how old you are, but I know that I've known you for at least 20 years.
Yes, that is true.
And it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed your success.
Thanks.
Now you're the face of the NFL Network, and I see you do podcasts and radio stuff, and it sure is a pleasure to see a good man succeed, good family man.
Thank you, Reggie. That means the world to me. And again, like I told you when we chit-chatted over the weekend, you were one of the first people I spoke to try and reach out to a contemporary athlete, a famous athlete of Ali's at the time of Ali when he was going through what he was going through, and also a young man as you were watching Ali fight list and change his name and then be a conscientious objector. And I want to know what were your thoughts on the passing of Muhammad Ali, Reggie?
They were. Yeah, I would say I was pensive. And for a better description, or my term of pensive, I was in deep thought. Understood how long he'd had Parkinson's since 1984. I saw the reasons why he had. I witnessed the reasons. I would not miss a fight of his. And all of the times, I spent a lot of time with him in the young days as a fighter. He trained at the cricket club in Florida and Miami, and I stayed there with the Yankees a couple of years during spring training. And being around him was just an absolute joy because he loved people so much that you could go to dinner with him and he'd round up 15 people along the way to bring with him. Come on, I got it. I'm treating. I mean, he was really an amazing person to be around. Good-hearted, never a mean spirit. I think the only time that he may have been angry and did something that he may have not done if he wasn't angered was Floyd Patterson had ridiculed him, and he didn't really knock him out. He kind of stretched the fight. Other than that, there was no mean bone in this guy's body, and I think he recognized who he was as an African American, as a black man in the world very quickly, that he could speak and say things, and he had an ability to say penetrating thoughts toward the white community, to bring recognition to minority oppression. So he related to so many people. And so no matter what type of minority you were, whether you were Jewish or African American or Latin American or Asian or Japanese, and in our country in the 70s, 60s and 70s, Japanese were thought of as, you put a crossbar in your fingers and, no, he's Japanese. Remember Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. Still have a Japanese friend lives next to me in Newport Beach, and he talked to me about having to get on a train and go to a camp in Texas when he was young. He's 81 years old. But he spoke for so many people, and he was able to say it, and be ridiculed to a point, but it made sense. That there's a lot of Charles Barkley says that, people can laugh at it or whatever, and he may say it in broken English, or I would say front stoop English, front porch English, to where you say things to your kids and say, I'm not going to be going over there because they don't want you there, so I don't want to go because I ain't allowed. Why you want to be where you're not wanted? And so those type of comments from some people make a lot of sense for people, and it creates a uniting and a positive polarizing of I think, Ali had a positive polarizing toward minorities.
Well, what about you, Reggie, when you were coming up and you were formulating yourself and what turned into the Mr. October brand, if you will? How did Ali influence you in the way that you spoke and then the way that sometimes you got criticized for and how you handled all of that?
I honestly think that, if you go back to Jackie Robinson, who was probably our first African-American leader. People don't remember Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver and people like that. But Jackie Robinson and then Martin Luther King, as they spoke with eloquence, I think Jackie Robinson spoke with dignity. At times they offended people because they were intelligent and spoke that way. And it was like, where does he get the right to speak like that? I think when Ali spoke, my ideas, get to the point to where he said, grow out your hair, be proud of your name. I remember him saying that in Indian people are named Silver Spoon or Shining Moon or something like that, and Jewish people are Steinberg or Moskowitz, whatever it may be. So be proud if you're a Jackson or a Johnson or a Smith or a Jones. Or be proud if your name is Leroy or Lamarcus or whatever you want to say. Grow your hair. Be proud of your hair. Don't cut your hair. Don't straighten your hair. He was a guy that really started the Afro. So, when he said something, when he spoke, when he presented himself and spoke to America, I honestly felt that he was a shining light for African-American people to be proud of themselves, because I remember when I was being raised in the 60s, you were comfortable being a second-class citizen because that's what you were, not trying to offend anyone as I'm speaking this in 2016, but you were a second-class citizen as a colored kid, Negro, Black. I think in the 90s or something, they changed it to multicultural. So I was all these things, Negro, Negroid, Nigra. And I remember meeting a gentleman in Birmingham, Alabama in 1967, and he said, this is just the kind of nigger boy that we need to start our college program, because if not, we're going to get run by. We're going to get run over by the California teams, and that's when USC went down and beat the tar out of Alabama. So that's the way it was. And watching Ali, listening to him, he gave you hope, and he gave you a way of presenting yourself and trying to talk and represent your community. As I tried to do at times, to say, no. It's, if I speak, why am I a wise guy, Philadelphia lawyer? Why am I unappreciative? Why am I not a Yankee? Or why am I not a proper Major League Baseball player if I speak my thoughts? So, he gave you the will, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King. Even though many of the quotes of Muhammad were, spoken by whether it be Jesse Jackson or Martin Luther King, he had a chance to echo them and, make the voice larger.
So, Reggie, I guess in closing, how do you think Ali has affected the sports world even today, where you look at it in 2016? And there may be some young people, different generations that aren't aware of his influence. How do you see it out there today?
I think that there are people that recognize that you're able to speak about your religion. You're able to talk about the fact that I don't believe in war. You're able to talk about, I think that this is unfair. As an African American, as a minority of any kind, any sort, I've always thought, that there was a kinship with all minorities, whether it be handicapped, African American, Latin American, Jewish, people of different religions, Islam. I think there's a kinship as minorities recognize that some of the things that Ali, had said, some of his great quotes, and we've all heard so many of them. don't count the days, make the days count. And if you don't take a risk, then you don't have a chance in life. That's the essence of some of the things that he says. And be proud of who you are, of your heritage. Be proud of your culture and your background. I think that's the impact that has meaning. I don't know if today's athletes, and I don't think it's fair to blame the athletes or put the burden on them, but I do think it's fair to say you should stand up for what you believe. And some of the greats of the past, like Sandy Koufax, who stood up for the Jewish people on the holiday where he refused to pitch. And it takes courage for Ali to say the things he said and Jackie Robinson to say the things he said. And so there are some players. I think LeBron James does his best to try to represent his culture, his heritage, and be the right kind of leader to say the things that impact all. I think the way that Stephen Curry carries himself as a mixed heritage cultural person, I think that he presents something that we're all proud of. So that whether who is in the face of the NBA, I think we're proud of the way these guys represent themselves.
Reggie, thanks so much for calling. I look forward to the next time when we'll talk some baseball. We'll talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football as well, since I know you're a fan of that as well. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for having me on, Rich. Take care, buddy.
Always.
Have a great day.
Same to you. At Mr. October on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.